Hi, I'm Sylvie from HR.com, and I'll be your webcast host today. We're happy you could join today's webcast, Scalable HR Integrations for Better Data Analytics, Challenges and Solutions, sponsored by Harbinger Group and presented by Shrikant Patatil, President at Harbinger Systems, and Vibhuti Agarwal, Senior Consultant. This webcast has been pre-approved for 1 HRCI and 1 SHRM credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credits. Throughout the webcast, you're welcome to submit your questions using the Q&A tab on your Zoom controls. We also have the chat open if you wish to submit comments and have a little conversation. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to today's presenters.
Thanks, Sylvie. It's a pleasure to be on the HR.com forum to present our thoughts on scalable HR integrations for better data analytics. So before Vibhuti and I start explaining and sharing our experiences, why did we choose this particular topic? So over the last 20 plus years, Harbinger has been helping many HR organizations, be it product companies or enterprises, kind of build their HR technology solutions. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen that there is a surge or a demand to do better data analytics, to get better insights of the so many systems that HR and employees are using, and to make sure that those insights are translated while making key business decisions as to how much productivity is happening in the organization, what reskilling is needed, also where there is attrition, what are the causes, maybe should it be like, would have been it be better to predict it while hiring, and so forth. And one of the key things we have seen during these implementations and integrations is that the whole data is siloed in many buckets, and within an organization it's very hard to collect all this information, and therefore you need integrations, and not just integrations, you need a scalable way of integration. So during the course of this particular presentation, we are going to highlight our experience and also share with you some tips of how you could approach data analytics within your organizations and how you can use scalable HR integrations to overcome some of the challenges that you may face. So with that, let me just go on with the first slide here, which will show up now. So before we get started, maybe it's a good idea as people are just coming in to just describe what's your current role in your organization. So Sylvie, if you can bring up the first poll, maybe we can just get an idea of the demographics of the people. So the poll is up there. You just have to say what is your current role, whether it's CHRO, HR manager, consultant, data integration specialist, vendor, or any other role that you may be playing currently in the organization. Keep it on for a few minutes, for 30 more seconds, just to make sure that everybody gets time to vote. Cool. So great. So that's the poll results. Thanks, Sylvie, for sharing that. So it looks like most of you are in the HR manager role, and I'm sure you'll be interacting and being requested to create a lot of data analytics. Same with the CHRO and HR leader role. I think a bunch of your interactions with the business leadership will be around data and analytics. And also, we see that there's some data and integration specialists here, so that's great. I'm sure they may have some tips or things or questions. Feel free to post them as we go through the presentation. So thank you for for that, for pulling in your role. Let's move on to the next. So our today's plan and what you will get by end of this session is the need for a data-driven HR and what's the relevance of that in your current organization. Also, we'd like to share what we have created, a workplace analytics maturity model, and how you can approach that to basically, build using that your own maturity model for your own organization, and use that to create a data strategy and an integration strategy long term. In addition, when you're actually implementing a data strategy, the challenges that you will run into, and what are the tips to kind of solve some of them. And finally, since we are going to focus a little bit deeper on the integration side, we will share with you some tips of how you select an integration approach based on our experience and the various implementations that we have done across organizations. So hopefully it'll give you some thoughts and ideas to think over, and also some tips to go and implement within your organization. So let's move on to the first section as to why data-driven HR is important. And let's first start by understanding how you are doing analytics today in your organization. So are you, Sylvie, can we bring up the second poll, please? So basically what we are trying to understand over here is that in your organization, are you using data extensively today, like almost like 100%, or only to some extent, or you're not leveraging data at all, or probably you're not aware? So if any of those are options, and for all of you, I think this session will be very useful, but I thought it'll be good to get an idea from the audience where exactly you are in your data journey today. You 10 to 15 more seconds for you to choose one of the options. Cool. So yeah, I mean, it's great. Like we have about 11% people who are actually using quite a bit of data. And most of you, which we have also seen, is fall in the second bucket, where there is some data, but it's not your organization or business is demanding more. And of course, there would be people who are not yet started their data journey. So in either cases, I'm sure it'll be good to the particular session will have enough tips for you to, irrespective of where you are in your data journey, to make some changes and make it better. So we did a webinar about 3 months back where we had partnered with Sierra Cedar, one of the leading HR research organizations. And the idea behind the webinar was to share their understanding about the research that they collected around data-driven organizations that are collecting and harnessing HR data effectively. How are they doing it, and what are the key components of that? So when you say that your organization is data-driven, there are 3 important things that they are doing. They have a clear data strategy, they have a data culture, and they have a clear data governance model. And what it helps is create focus on basically outcomes as opposed to record keeping. Mostly when organizations talk about being data driven or using data, they mistake it to be about storing data and collecting data, but they are not driving any business outcome. So I think once you make sure that you do all these 3 aspects and create that, so every time you are thinking about buying a new system or changing a platform, one of the things that is going to be important for you is to see how it integrates with your existing platform, what new data elements will get created as a part of that software, and how using that you can improve overall your business decision making. The second point that was important when it came to this particular survey and sharing those findings was that most data-driven organizations make that data available to frontline managers. So the frontline managers are able to use this data real time in making HR decisions. So for example, if you are in if you're analyzing how productive your workforce is just by harnessing the data from the HR system and the time and attendance system is not useful anymore. You have to make sure that it is bringing in data from Teams, it is bringing in data from Salesforce, it is bringing in data from multiple other systems that the workforce may be using and collaborating to get the work done. So it's important to get information from all of them to make a decision whether how productive the workforce is. Similarly, these were interesting times, at least the last 6 to 8 months, where we had the pandemic. There was a whole lot focus about employee safety and employee well-being. And if HR need to be able to report on how employees are doing and whether they're doing well and in what state they are in, again, it required a lot of integration with a lot of tools, and managers were spending a lot of time collecting information across and correlating and creating this information. So organizations which were data driven could take decisions much quicker based on these inputs that were coming in from various tools and platforms, and they were able to pivot sooner, maybe think about reskilling a particular set of people rather than losing them over a period of time. And lastly, on the recruitment side as well, there has of course been a dip in certain industries as far as the whole recruitment industry is concerned. But overall, frontline managers need information about what's happening inside the organization and also outside the organization through systems that are well connected, so that they can make better hiring decisions or make better pay decisions or make better internal job postings and so forth. So overall, in any of these areas that you take, data is very important, and access is very important for frontline managers to help drive business decision making. So to make sure that taking these two input points, what we thought was every organization needs an analytics maturity model, and there's various forms of this maturity model out there, and we have tried to make it as simple as possible. You may have one system that does everything for your HR, or you may have that's not luxury in all organizations. So there will be multiple systems that does multiple things. So you need to probably create a reporting and analytics layer on top of that and create a vision how you would drive from efficiency, which is like if you take the recruitment context, things like volume, time, cost of hire, to take that to the next level to like quality of hire, and finally to moving it to business outcomes. So overall, if you have a maturity model in mind, you are able to make better decisions when you bring in new platforms, and also take those platforms in such a way that and integrate them in such a way that you can take most of these platforms which give you information on the first two areas, that is on the basic operational and advanced reporting, take it to the next level of analytics, where you may have to do something within your organization, because for doing predictive analytics or advanced analytics, the system usually doesn't help you. You have to create your own data solutions, your own data bases or data warehousing solutions, bring in all the data together and help you drive those business outcomes. Now, we did this specifically for the applicant tracking space. And we identified all the metrics that a particular organization that we were working with would track. And what we realized that there was, for this particular organization, there were about 19 different metrics which would help them drive and take their recruitment from basic reporting to outcome-based reporting. And usually the applicant tracking system that they were using gave 12 out of the 19 metrics within the system. So they didn't have to go anywhere else. They had to just create the reports within the ATS to be able to do that. However, for about 7 of them, what we realized is that they had to integrate with various platforms like job boards, HRIS, and payroll. And that's where, and it's not just integration from a one-time standpoint. They had to look at information over a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, to make sure that, they are based on the hires that they're making or the processing that they're doing of candidates, they are able to change business outcomes. So this is an exercise we do for each of the modules that you may have, and you could, as a step 2 of creating your maturity model, you have to go workflow by workflow and create it so that you can take your journey of data analytics from basic efficiency to business outcomes. So that's an example of how we have done for one of the organizations. Hope it resonates with you as well. Moving further, now that we have understood that you need a maturity model, you need these parameters and variety of data sources from where you need to pick and choose information from, what are the challenges when it comes to implementing HR data and analytics? So let's go into that aspect a little more and dig deeper and look at some examples. So the first thing before we move and enter, I'm sure like some of you have already doing some data analytics within your organization. To transform it to completely a data-driven organization, we want to do a quick poll here. Sylvie, if you can bring up the third poll, saying that what's your challenge, like whether it's lack of a strategy, whether there are too many systems that have legacy and they don't exchange data efficiently, therefore you have to do it manually, too many disconnected systems, there's lack of budget, or lack of expertise. So which is your important challenge that or multiple that you could that you foresee? Give you like 10-15 more seconds for you to think and respond. So, and different organizations face different challenges based on where they are in their data journey. So let's look at the results where people are facing most challenges. So the first, we see that, of course, the data strategy, that's probably the primary roadblock, but the lack of, there being too many disconnected systems and lack of budget is also a key challenge. And I think that also resonates with what we have heard in the industry. And for the disconnected systems and lack of budget, I think we have some recommendations coming up. So hopefully some of the slides that where we share those recommendations and thoughts, you'll find it useful of how to start your data journey irrespective of these challenges. So let's move into the next part about specifically addressing this concern about disconnected systems. So the primary reason why a data strategy fails is you need to have a data strategy, that's true, but one of the important things that makes a difference between a good data strategy and bad data strategy or difficulty in implementing is not having the integration well thought of. So before you do a data strategy, you really need to think of having an integration strategy. And that's where most of us have challenges with, because there's so many systems, we have bought them at so many different times that it's practically impossible to connect everything so that we can get better better data analytics or better workflows. Also, when you're buying new systems or if you're looking at your own internal systems, one of the important things for you to start doing first is to make sure everything is API based, because even if data, if you are able to pull in data from multiple systems, they are 1 day or 5 days old, uh, the reporting or the analytics doesn't hold good. So you may lose some competitive advantage if they are not all API based. Uh, Other important aspect which is becoming very, very important these days is every time you are reporting or doing analytics, you need to have access to productivity data. So that means you need to have access to the tools and technology people are using to deliver or create their work. So that information has to come back in some form in terms of what you're reporting and creating analytics on. And the fourth most important point is also various departments and businesses use different forms of business and financial data. So again, tapping into that information helps you connect when you report, create a data analytics report or create an outcome report. Having access to these systems is critical, and making them part of your integration strategy is important for you to be able to report accurately and timely. So these are some of the aspects that you need to look at when it comes to integration and integration strategy. The second, let's go a little deeper about need for integration strategy. And is it like only we are saying we need an integration strategy, or what is it that the industry is saying? And recently there's been surge about what's happening and how many people are looking at integration as one of the primary reasons or primary strategies to drive their better data analytics. So if you look at the API integration report by Cloud Elements, they said that about 84% of ISVs and enterprises felt that API integration is critical or very critical for their business strategy. Same thing with Gartner. They said that about 50% of the investment will go towards integration work when people are building digital platforms. And there are players like AWS coming up with platforms like AppFlow. So if you are thinking of building your own integration platform or building it ground up, then there is tools available which help you do that. And the large players are bringing that to the market so that you can build it ground up. So that means the direction of integration and the integration strategy that you have to that you may need to invest in. There is enough support and enough knowledge happening in the industry which you can leverage to create your own integration strategy that helps you in your data strategy long term. So let me at this time take a break and bring my colleague Vibhuti, who's kind of an expert in integrations and has designed multiple workflows. So let me have her run through some examples for you to give you a more detailed overview of some of these scenarios. So Vibhuti, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shrikant, and hello, everyone. So as Shrikant said, I'll be discussing with you about some of the fragmented and integrated systems. So talking about the fragmented systems, which you see on the left of this particular infographic, what we'll do is that we'll try to look at this system taking a specific persona's user journey. So Joe's journey, when he accesses this whole fragmented system is what we are going to look at. So Joe is responsible for annual employee compensation, and his organization, as you see, has it uses some state-of-art softwares for time and attendance, for goal management, task management, and performance management. But what is the problem that we see? That they are not connected in any way. So during annual compensation, in order to check how an employee has done when it comes to, say, the attendance or the goal completions, or maybe the task that the employee has completed, Joe needs to refer to multiple reports which are presented by these individual softwares, and these reports might be in different formats. So using these reports, Joe has to make an employee profile. And you know what? Joe's work doesn't end after making this profile. He's now required to compare that profile with the feedback given by the employee's manager in the performance management system. So I would like you to visualize and relate maybe some of your past experiences or situations with this particular persona. So even with so many good systems at his disposal, we see that finding correlations between employee performance, feedback, and finally translating them into the compensation plan, it becomes a nightmare for him. So, so what do we observe here? That while the individual softwares, they fulfill their specific objectives very accurately, but the fragmented ecosystem they create, it overall leads to significant manual overhead. It creates chances of manual errors, delays, added costs and resources, and maybe a lot of inaccuracies in the crucial HR activities. So these are some of the challenges of the fragmented system. Now, looking at the right hand side, so what is the solution to it? So, well, the solution is to have an entire HR ecosystem where each of these individual softwares are connected with one another for seamless and real-time data transfer. So imagine that there is a new hire information. So it comes from the recruitment software. It must be sent to the employee details. The employee details should be sent to the payroll, to the employee management, and the benefit system automatically. So the HR team and managers can also log into these systems using same credentials, so one set of login and password, and any kind of a data update which is made or data deleted or new data added, everything gets reflected in the entire ecosystem. So that's the benefit of the integrated system. Now, moving ahead, going to the next slide, let's take a look at a broken workflow example. And again, we will try to understand this using looking at the user journey of two characters out here, Jim and Susan, throughout this given workflow. And Jim and Susan, they work in HR department of their company that uses separate software for time and attendance and payroll. So as you can see, Jim is responsible, is taking care of the time and attendance section, and he is responsible to manage employee leaves and attendance, for which he needs to log into the time and attendance system. And he has to manually download the attendance report each week for employee payroll, because he needs to give those details for employee payroll to Susan. Now he has to put date filter, he has to download and then convert the report into Excel, because payroll system accepts the reports in Excel format. So he has to change the format. And then now just imagine that this Excel, say suppose misses out on one key component. And for example, we can take it as an employee ID. Now this employee ID is used by the payroll system. So what Jim would have to do now, he would have to add this employee ID for all those, say, 100 employees in the Excel sheet, cell after cell after cell, so that it is passed on to Susan. Now, this is definitely a lot of manual effort. So, since all these processes have a lot of manual intervention, what Susan will do is that she will again have to check the data thoroughly before processing it through the payroll software. So she also needs to modify the Excel so that it matches the input criteria, which is set by the payroll system. So any inaccuracy in the data Jim and Susan would need to do a lot of rework. So in case any inaccuracy is found. So I hope we all agree to the fact that all of these processes, they take a significant amount of time, and any delay in the process will have an impact on employee's salary in this case. So on the contrary, when we move to the next slide, we see that the same scenario, how it looks, in an integrated workflow. So I hope you agree that visually also this workflow looks very simple compared to the broken one. So we see how Suzanne is managing the whole show alone. So she's taking care of payroll system. She's able to log into the time and attendance system as well. She gets the real-time time and attendance reports for verification and audit. And all the things that we just discussed in the broken flow are taken care of, by using this entire integrated workflow, which we can do using maybe the custom connector or frameworks or EBS. So getting the real-time reports, adding the missing data, changing the format, meaningful customization, and overall data mapping and the transformation of data. All of this can be managed internally through the integrated workflow. So the main benefit that we see here is that real-time data processing is happening, and which is leading to shorter duration and without any manual overhead. So these are the benefits of the integrated workflow. Over to you, Shrikant.
Thanks, Vibhuti. And as Vibhuti mentioned, all those integration points, and there are multiple integration points here when it comes to building an integration workflow, even between two systems. And because it's integrated and there is no manual process, as an organization, you can also harness data at different points and create your own data sources so that later, if you want to do any historical reporting or you want to do any real-time reporting, you can create your own reports using this information. If it were a manual process, then you would not be able to do and build analytics on top of that. So integration doesn't only support creating a workflow or build a workflow automation, it also lays the base or the stepping stone for your data analytics. So that's why having an integrated workflow is very necessary in all the systems that you interact with these days. So thank you, Vibhuti, for giving us that visual example of how things work and the changes you have made in a particular organization. So moving on, now that we've understood the need for data analytics, the maturity model that you could probably look at when you look at your implementing your data strategy, and also the importance of integrated workflows and how you can harness data if you have an integrated system. The question that comes in mind is, how do you actually go about your integration strategy? How do you implement it? What are your choices? And we also saw that some people saying that budget is a constraint or disconnected systems are a constraint and some of those things. So specifically, how do you address some of those challenges? Again, here we had done a detailed session where we had called experts from advising people from organizations who had actually bought a particular software and done their integration strategy or used open source and implemented their integration strategy or built from scratch. So I will share some tips from that specific session over here to help you make a decision if you are about to decide on an integration strategy or you're looking to change an integration strategy, how it may help. So there are three important ways in which you could approach your integration. The first approach is, of course, the buy approach. And the buy approach is relevant when specifically you're looking to implement not just the HR organization, but looking at solve integration problems across the organization. If the problem is that large and you're doing that, then in most scenarios, it'll be good for you to look at a platform like a Dell Boomi, MuleSoft, and there are many other platforms. And what kind of connectors and ready-made things that they have for the organization that you're trying to integrate and the workflows you're trying to integrate. and the data that you plan to exchange. So if you have that large sort of a implementation and budget is not a constraint for you, and you are dealing with mission critical data, or in which is of course need real-time access, volume is pretty large, and you need like premium support for your integration strategy. If some of these are your key requirements, then then the buy option is viable. Of course, it takes a little longer cycles to implement some of these things, but there are also ready-made connectors, and so which will help you, do some of these things faster. We did that with a particular healthcare organization, and interestingly, they also exposed some of these integrations and the APIs that they build through some of these softwares externally, because, and that could also be a criteria. So if you're not using within your organization, but you need some of the data exposed to maybe your vendors, to other third party, and they want to integrate with you as well, then using a platform, and you want to license it in some way, or make sure that everything works seamlessly, then the buy option makes pretty solid scenario. The second approach is also very interesting, and many organizations are implementing that. In fact, we are partnering with some of the platforms, open source platforms, and helping organizations use that within their department. So specifically, open source is more tempting when you're using it internally, and also it's across to one or two departments and not whole organization wide, because when you go whole organization wide, there are certain systems which probably cannot use open source, and you may have business and legal restrictions around that. But if you're using it for your own data, if you're using it within a department, and you still have very large integration requirements, you don't want to build ground up, but you're looking at taking a platform approach, then open source makes a lot of sense. Of course, there are not that many connectors. You need to have to build some of your own connectors, but still it gives you a good start. And of course, there's no licensing fee. So you need to host it, but you may already have systems that you're already hosting. So your cost may be covered. Again, from an open source perspective, it works for mission critical data, real-time access. Mid to large volumes work very well. With very large volumes, probably you need to do a little bit more work with your IT team to be able to do that. And of course, the support is basic, so sometimes you may run into issues. But if you have a good IT team, and if you have a good vendor team who understands some of these softwares, this is also a viable approach for having a great integration strategy that powers not only your workflow automations, but also powers your data analytics strategy. The third and the most important one that we have seen of late, many people adapting to, because integrations is not only requirement of large organizations, or data analytics is also not a requirement that only large organizations are dealing with. Even the smaller organizations need data integrations, and the scale at which they need probably doesn't require a platform, an integration platform to be implemented. So because they don't want the extra software and hardware to deal with a platform. So they are more interested in doing it point to point, or connecting 7 or 8 different systems, and they fairly understand, and it's fairly localized. So therefore, building becomes an important option. And also there are platforms like Appflow that I talked about, that AWS has released, could give you a good starting point. So it's not like you have to build everything from scratch. There are a lot of things that are available ready-made that you can build on top of it. And also another important point that we have seen where people go for build option is, when they evaluate open source and buy options, the connectors that they're looking for, it's not there. And primary reason for some of that is because they have some niche platforms or smaller platforms for which the open source and the buy and the build and the big platforms are not interested in building the connectors. So if you have that kind of a scenario, then building might be a cheaper option, faster option to handle your requirements. So those were some of the approaches, and I'm sure this three options would have given you some food for thought as to how to go and implement your integration strategy. So overall, I wanted to quickly take time to kind of bring all of it together into what we covered today in terms of scalable HR integrations for better data analytics. So if you're thinking about data analytics and you're thinking about it as your next 3 to 5 years sort of a goal of how to implement it within the HR organization, the first and foremost thing that you need to do is to create an analytics maturity model custom to your specific needs, and you need to grow that over a period of time. And you need to start with a few applications that you're using regularly, connect them, and build on top of that. The second most important thing is think about integrations, and not just think about integration on a point-to-point basis, but think about it in a scalable way. And any platform that you're buying or a legacy platform that you're using, first and foremost thing is to make sure that's all API based. So it's all real time, and you can build and extend it pretty easily. And the last thing that we covered was about the integration approach. So based on your budget, based on your immediate needs or next 3 years needs, you need to plan between whether you want to choose a buy option, you want to choose an open source option, or you want to choose a build option. All three have benefits. All three have pros and cons. Some of them I've listed, some of them I've shared examples with. And in your particular scenario, you would need to talk to a few people internally and externally to determine what's the best approach. But having some of these ideas in your mind will help you decide which how to go about your integration strategy. So on that note, I would like to spend maybe a minute or so as to what Harbinger does. So Harbinger, like I mentioned to you, we have been in the industry for about 30 years, and 20 plus years we have been working with HR companies, HR product companies, HR vendors, and we have been helping them build solutions. And right now, I think one of the key areas where we are helping teams is on the data engineering strategy, specifically related to HR data. And we have a team of consultants specializing in the domain and technology to help you with those specific needs. So that's pretty much what I and Vibhuti had in store for today. And we have come into the last part of the session, which is the Q&A. Over to you, Sylvie. We can open it up for questions now.
All right. I was just about to type in for the attendees to please submit some questions. We've got our great panelists here today, and I'm sure they would like to offer you some answers to or solutions for your needs. So we'll take a moment here for you to get some questions in there. We have about 6 minutes or so left, so let's use them.
Yeah, sure. I have a first question. How does integrated system? I think Vibhuti, you may want to take that.
Yeah, sure, Kumudni. So as I said while explaining the workflow, that there are various benefits that we get through integrated systems. So, efficient use of the data is one of the biggest benefit of an integrated system. In fact, seamless data transfer is another big benefit. In fact, by delivering your product as an integrated application system, I think you can also have a better system security for all sensitive HR data that you have. So this will make your application or your system safer. And I think it will help gaining more customer confidence in the secured, safe system. Apart from that, real-time reports getting is a big help. Significantly shorter time in the whole process, significantly shorter wait time is also one of the big advantages, and minimal manual intervention is again one of the significant benefits of an integrated system. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Vibhuti. Let me see if we have a few more. Yeah, we do. So it is asking, is any approach faster than the other when we talk about integrations? I think Shrikant, maybe you can take that.
Yeah, Kumudari. So basically, no approach is faster per se. It takes time to, if you take a build option, uh, you will need time to build all the connectors. Whereas open source and buy option, you may get the ready-made connector, but then to make a determination of the platform, that could take time. So from a time perspective, probably it will take probably the same time from when you start, but I feel you may have an advantage if you are looking at very complex integrations over a period with the buy or the open source option in terms of time you save eventually.
Yeah, sure, Shrikant. And I think we still have maybe a couple of more minutes, and I can take one more question maybe. How do we go about building our own workplace analytics maturity model?
Okay. Well, I think it's custom for organization to organization, and pretty much you will have to have the HR team up with your IT team and maybe some of the vendors coming together and consultants to create that maturity model for you. And it could probably be a combination of 2-3 areas that you're looking at initially to create your analytics or drive business outcomes. So for example, if you're looking at better productivity, then you have to make sure which all platforms need to be connected together to create a maturity model for that. Or if it's for the entire HR, then the entire HR. So overall, I would say it's a team effort that you need to put in place for maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks to come up with that strategy for your own organization.
Yes, Shrikant. And I think we'll take one more in the interest of time. So how safe it is to share data with vendors? Shrikant, again, maybe, yeah.
That today, I think most of our data is on the cloud, and of course we rely on their security. And of course you could get into specific agreements with vendors to make sure the data is secure and you have that confidence. But anywhere you think that it's not possible to share that data outside the organization, you can have the vendors come in and implement it for you, so within your organization. So but I think these days there is enough mechanisms to secure your data, even if you're working remotely or externally.
Yes, sure, Shrikant. So I have just shared our email ID in the chat. If in case audience have few more questions, we may want to get back to them over email. Yes, Sylvie, over to you.
All right, thank you so much to our sponsor, the Harbinger Group, and our presenters for this timely and informative presentation. Thank you also to the audience for participating. We will be sending you an email with your credit information within 24 hours. You'll also find the credits in your View My Credits page of your HR.com membership profile once the webcast has been archived. Your feedback is important to us. Please take a moment to fill out the exit survey that opened in a new browser page on your computer. This concludes our webcast, Enjoy the rest of the event and the rest of your day.